Well, hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. I'm thinking about frames within frames at the moment. Just behind me I've got a tree just here with this little bit of concrete path running to the side of it, a bit of wall, and then I've got this pond out in front of me, and across the pond there's a little cutting with a tree that's fallen and kind of landed in the water. I'm focused on that tree, but what I'm doing is using this tree here and the holly on the other side and all of the tree branches above to actually frame this image. I'm trying to frame that tree at the back of the pond within this tree here and the holly, so hopefully I've managed to capture that quite well. My focus is very much on the tree on the far side of the pond there, but I'm shooting at f4, which obviously is a wide aperture, so a very shallow depth of field. So whilst I've got that tree at the back in focus, virtually everything else in front of it may well be falling out of focus. So I hope you like that image. I've got another one here as well, just a few feet from where I'm standing. I'm going to turn around and show it you actually. There's this tree here which kind of leads into this path here, and then there's more holly on the other side of the path, and I want to kind of frame this path between this tree and the holly again. So I'm going to have to take a few steps back and probably shoot this in portrait orientation, but I have noticed that it's just starting to rain again. It was raining first thing this morning and it's been dry most of the time while I've been out, but just as I get started on my vlog it's decided it's going to start raining again. I don't know how long that's going to last for, because there is a slither of blue cloud just over my shoulder, which I think is going to be heading this way in a few moments. So I might not get too wet, but I'm going to take this shot anyway, and I hope you like the last one. So that image was quite an interesting one. What I discovered when I tried to frame it up was that there is holly on both sides of the path, and depending on where you stand, some of that holly encroaches into the side of the tree, and I didn't want that. So I had to really think carefully about where I stood, because I knew that if I just tried to move slightly to the right, then the holly on the other side of the path would have completely covered the path. So I had to be really careful. I managed to find a spot which I quite like the composition in the end, and it was with the tree on the left hand third of a portrait shot, and then the path began on the left hand bottom corner and kind of worked its way towards the middle of the scene and around the right hand side of the tree, leaving the tree and the path towards the left hand side, pointing you towards the right hand side into the woodland behind it. So I quite like that image when I finally worked out exactly where to park myself and capture it. So I hope you've enjoyed that one as well. I'm going to move on and see if I can find something a little bit different again now. Once again I'm looking for a frame within a frame, which is surprisingly quite difficult in woodland photography, but I'll persevere anyway, and even if the rain comes back I'll continue to persevere until I get the shots that I want. So I'm going to move on and I'll see you in a few moments. It's safe to say this next shot is going to be a little bit out of my comfort zone, something a little bit abstract and a little bit different, but I want to try it anyway because it looks good. Just behind me here I've got a metal fence stopping people from falling in the water in the pond behind me, but also in this pond there are some wooden groins. Don't know how well you can see those just there running across the pond a little bit, and from where I was just standing just a moment ago I had a perfect shot in between the railings of this metal fence to a couple of those wooden groins, right kind of slap bang in the middle of the railings of the fence, and it looked pretty interesting. So I think I'm going to set that one up and try and focus on the wooden groins, but keep the frame of the fence within the image as well. So that's going to be quite an interesting one. I'm going to give it a try. I don't know how well it'll work, but let me know in the comments what you think of it and whether you like it. I quite like it, just looking at it. So I'm going to set up and take that shot now. I discovered that I had to get the 70 to 300mm lens out for that shot. I thought I would have to. Where I was standing, the composition was perfect. The separation between the wooden groins and the metal fence was just right. But when I tried it with the 17 to 40mm lens, I discovered, of course, that was too wide. The angle was too wide and there was far too much around the edge of the image in shot. And I didn't want to do that because it would mean cropping out a lot of the image just to get that one shot that I wanted. So instead I took out the 70 to 300mm lens and was able to zoom in a little bit closer without altering the composition of the space between the fence and the wooden groins. But it just meant that I was able to get a much tighter crop by zooming in that little bit further. It seems to have worked out alright. I've just had a quick look at it on the back of the camera and it seems to have worked out okay. So I hope you like that one as well. I'm going to walk back along this path into the woodland here, which I've walked along twice already today, and this will be the third time I walk down there today. And obviously I have to walk back again on the way back. But the main reason that I want to go back down there is the first two times I went along that path, I was heading that way to go and get my first two images, and I had to walk down that path to get those first two images. And then on the way back, I was coming back here to capture that image of the fence and the wooden groins, and I've walked back along the same path. But on both occasions I've noticed there are, I think, probably two, possibly even three decent compositions along there that I wanted to capture, and on both occasions I've not bothered to stop and actually take them. So I'm hoping that I haven't lost the light when I get back there this third time, and I can still capture the images that I wanted to get there. So let's go and see what I can do there. My next two images really do kind of push the envelope with regards to frames within frames, and I'm kind of going to have to explain them both to you, because otherwise you're just not going to see the frame yourself. They are interesting shots that I spotted on the way up and down this path a couple of times already today. So I'm going to see if I can point them out to you. Just behind me you'll see this path runs along further behind me, and just about here there's just a little patch of extra light coming through the trees to this area here. Now just behind that there are three trees, one right slap bang in the middle of the frame and then two either side of it, and they are being side and front lit by the sun that's coming through just there. And then before those you've got a couple of trees either side of the path, and I think I'm going to use those as my frame to frame up the tree right in the very middle of the scene. It's going to have to be a 70 to 300mm lens again, because I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit to that, but again I found the perfect spot for the composition. So I hope you like this image. Just as I stand in exactly the spot I was in to take this photo behind me, one you've just seen, and you can see my tripod still set up in the position it was in to take that photo. Like I say, it was a 70 to 300mm shot, but as I stand in exactly the same spot and turn the camera around, I'm going to show you exactly what I've got behind me that captured my eye again. You'll see just behind me here there's a little bit of a cutting between these trees here. We've got this tree here and this tree here at the front, and then just a little way back there's another tree just there with another tree behind it, and the three trees are kind of framing this one up in the middle of the scene. And there's a little bit more light on that every now and then, and it's that tree that I wanted to capture. It's a slightly different looking tree to the ones all around it, so it just kind of caught my eye because it stands out a little bit more than the others. So I'm going to set up and take that shot. I hope you like it, this one as well. That last shot was shot f4, widest possible aperture on this lens, portrait orientation, ISO of 200, and I started with an exposure time of 1/30th of a second, but there was so much dynamic range coming through because the light coming through the trees at the top of the scene was incredible. So I also shot at 1/15th of a second and 1/60th of a second, and I'm going to exposure bracket those when I get them back on the computer at home. But I really like that image just because it was a tree that kind of stood out in the middle of everything else, and wasn't exactly the same as everything else. I still think there's the potential for one more shot. So I'm going to see if I can find just one more shot and then I'll call it a day. This last image could also be a bit of a push as well. Where I'm standing now, I don't know how well you can see it, just there's a dark and shadowy tree, and it's got these two branches just on, as you look on the left hand side of the tree coming out there. The bottom one of those two branches kind of leans over towards these trees here in the background, and between them they kind of frame the road behind it quite well. So I'm going to use that as a frame, but also the top branch of that tree, that dark and shadowy tree. Sorry about that, leaves getting in my way. But yeah, the top branch of that dark and shadowy tree then kind of creates a frame in between it and the bottom branch. And if I get that just right, there's a point where there are some leaves hanging down further behind towards the road, which is just catching the sunlight perfectly in between those two branches. So I'm going to give that one a shot as well. It is a bit of a push to call it a frame within a frame, but I think I can just about get away with it if I shoot that in portrait orientation. And that's going to be my last image of the day. Unfortunately with that shot I had to wait a little while for a couple of reasons. The first reason was the light faded a little bit, and so it wasn't really kissing those leaves at all that I wanted it to. But then whilst I waited for the light to change back and allow me to get some light on those leaves, just as I was waiting, a young lady with a pushchair and a baby in it came round the corner and walked down that road behind the trees, so I couldn't really take the shot with her in it. So I had to wait a couple of minutes while she got out of the frame, and even by then the light hadn't come back enough to kiss those leaves anyway. But I've got the shot anyway. It looks quite a lot better on the back of the camera than I thought it was going to, and to be honest, where this shady tree is standing and kind of leaning over, just behind it and to the left of that in the shot, there's another bigger tree that you can see there, and that kind of frames the smaller tree up quite well as well. And I hadn't realised that until I actually set up the composition and looked at it on the back of the camera before I took the shot. So I do still quite like it, and I hope you like it as well. I'm going to call it quits for today's vlog. I hope you've enjoyed these images and me talking about frames within frames, and please remember to like and subscribe, and I shall see you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.